Welcome everyone, Tony here from Refinement, Not Retirement, here to talk about the UK general election results. A good thing about being in refinement is you get time to think about things that you couldn't think about before when you had an actual job. Things like politics and things like elections, things that I just didn't get time to think about in any depth. So I've been asked mainly by American and Canadian friends recently my thoughts on what happened in the UK election. And so I've been thinking about that. Obviously, the predicted landslide win by Labour, bringing to an end 14 years of Conservative rule, did happen. When I was thinking about who to vote for, I must say I didn't think much of the options. I'd fallen out of love with the Conservative Party, having been a Conservative Party voter all my life. But I became thoroughly disillusioned with the party, um, depressed at Tory sleaze, depressed at Boris Johnson, depressed about how Brexit was handled, depressed by the way COVID was handled and the sleaze attached to the PPE scandal and them giving contracts to their buddies. Very depressed by the post office scandal, which saw these sub postmasters treated so atrociously. Some of them going to prison, one lady going to prison while pregnant, many, not many, but a number having lost their lives, committed suicide, lost their livelihoods. It goes on and on and on, doesn't it? And the Conservative government did nothing, sat back with folded arms. And eventually it took a TV docudrama to bring the matter into the public domain in a very big way. And then they started to do something, but all too little, too late. And I was really, really appalled by that. Continue to be appalled by it, frankly. But I really couldn't bring myself to vote Labour. Uh, and really, anyway, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party have coalesced when it comes to ideas, really. They sing from the same hymn sheet, don't they? I ended up voting, and so did Christine. We both voted Green. Not that we agree with everything that they're saying, but we feel very, very passionately about the climate change issue, and we believe it is an emergency, and they're the only ones. Well, with them, it's front and center, isn't it? So, and it just felt like a fresh thing to do. Obviously, we knew that they had no chance of getting anywhere meaningful, but I must say I felt good about voting Green. But I don't think that this big, Labour campaigned on bringing about change. Change was their big watchword, wasn't it, in their campaign? But I don't think it's going to, this change of the guard is going to really produce anything very different. Do you? I mean, the core problem is that the country is running out of money. Uh, Everywhere things are falling to bits. The National Health Service is in a dire state. The justice system, I mean, the courts. I've used the courts from time to time, still do. Um, and I mean, they're a joke, really. I mean, they're not that I don't want to run down the people that work there, because I'm sure they're doing their best with the resources that they have available to them. But they're so far behind, they lose documents right, left, and center. They get things wrong. And it's quite clear to me that they just don't have the resources. And that's so true throughout, I think, every government department that you come into contact with. They're just all so bad, really. So this is all a bit depressing, isn't it? I hope I'm going to end up here in this episode with something more positive to say. But I think the start, as I say, the difference between the two main parties is, really paper thin. So I don't think it's going to make very much difference. And I think the problem that we have here is that we have a broken political system. See, Labour have won this apparent, what's described as a landslide, with less than 35% of the popular vote. The Tories weren't that far behind, even though they've been trounced. They got 23.6, nearly 24% of the popular vote. But of course, far less seats. Labour won 412 out of 650 seats, which gives them a massive mandate, which means they don't have to listen to the other parties, do they? They can essentially do what they want. Nigel Farage's party, not that I care very much for him or his party. I mean, he's a Trump supporter for a start, big Trump supporter, big friend of Trump. And they're also climate deniers. Well, they won 14% of the popular vote, but that only translated into 5 seats in Parliament. So they haven't really got a position to say very much. The Liberal Democrats, our third party here, won a record number of seats for them, 71. That's I think the best they've ever done in history. But and they lag behind the Reform Party with only 12% of the popular vote, where Reform Party with its 5 seats, you may recall, were at 14% of the popular vote. How can that be right? The Greens, for which we voted, won nearly 7% of the popular vote, which translated to 4 seats. So they might as well not even bother turning up, really. Voter turnout was the lowest in more than 20 years. And I think that the result reflects not so much a Labour Party winning as a voter population that wanted to get rid of the Conservatives, and I don't blame them for that. It was definitely time for change in a change of the guard. But this first past the post system that we have here is just not developed, not producing a fair and balanced outcome, is it? I mean, you can see that from the figures I've just discussed. It leads to this sort of Punch and Judy politics. One party gets in, like Labour have done, and fiddles about while Rome burns, and then the other party, they get kicked out, and then the other party will get in, and then they undo whatever the previous party started to do. And it's back and forth, as I say, Punch and Judy. And I think what we need is we need governments that work, well, politicians, leaders, political leaders that work in a consensual way, that we want cooperative politics. And the public are crying out for this, it seems to me. They don't like hearing politicians come on the TV, radio, etc., and just bash one another. We want them to work together. I mean, you can have a dinner party and with your friends, and there'll be lots of things probably around the table that you disagree on, but you can still be friends and work together to get things done. And that's what we need from our politicians. We need a voting system that expects parties to work together. Now, I'm not pretending that I have the answers, but I know this isn't working. It has to change, doesn't it? I mean, clearly the Tories became far too arrogant with their majority that they had for 14 years. Um, and if there had been an electoral result that reflected the feelings, the different opinions that exist, because I don't think there are any. Do you think that there are any right and wrong answers? I don't think there are. I mean, there are some things on the right hand side of politics, if you want to put it that way, that I agree with, and there are some things on the left-hand side of politics that I agree with, and I disagree in equal measure on both sides of that particular argument, that debate. But so we have to discuss in a collegial way and come out with solutions that we agree on. Um, Rather than just knocking the hell out of one another. And you can see the way that this goes if you look across the Atlantic to what's happened in America. I mean, the two sides hate one another. It's really depressing to see how much they detest one another. And they just, now call it, look, Trump never stops calling Biden crooked Joe. And they just accuse one another of being crooks instead of recognizing that people in political service probably are there for the right reasons. They're not sure that's the case with Trump, but generally speaking, before he poisoned the well, um, I think on both sides there are good people. Look at the way we've had the transfer of power here after Rishi Sunak lost the election, that he accepted the result, unlike Trump, and passed it over his speech. He made a most gracious speech, and we've had a peaceful and efficient transfer of power. They can't even do that in the US now. Trump's already saying that if he loses, he won't accept the result, isn't he? This is what it leads to, this sort of Punch and Judy politics. And I think we need a system we need a system where people start to work together on long-term solutions, because you can't get one side in and they have it all their own way and do stuff, and then get kicked out and it's all undone 4 years later. Um, that just that we have to have long-term solutions, and I think the only way that you can do that is for parties to get together and come up with solutions for the long term. Uh, Going back to the essential problem that we have, running out of money, with all these things breaking down: justice system, health service, water, energy, climate, transportation. Our defense is very, very important, especially with Putin and people like that around. We need long-term solutions that we can agree on, and we need to cure the essential central problem of not having enough money. And the main problem is, and Starmer has started to say this in recent years, hasn't he? That the main thing we have to concentrate on is creating wealth. There's no substitute for that. You know, we can't borrow our way out of this, and we can't tax our way out of this. I mean, we can to a certain extent borrow and to a certain extent tax, but that can only go so far without causing those two things. Either of those directions can only go so far without causing real damage. So I think I wanted to, well, I did say, didn't I, that I wanted to end with something positive. And I think that the something positive that is happening is we had the Industrial Revolution, and which made such an enormous difference and created all kinds of wealth, massive wealth. And now we're going through a technological revolution. We've got I've been overawed by what's happening with artificial intelligence. Um, and it looks like we are close to making real breakthroughs with robotics, with possibly affordable humanoid robots coming into existence. It's beginning to sound like a bit of a sci-fi thing, isn't it? But I've been researching this and recently taking a big interest in it. And I think that we're getting close to something very, very big happening there. And uh, obviously, there are all kinds of issues that this throws up, not least of all is what the heck when people are put out of work by machines on a massive scale, which is going to happen. How are we going to deal with money? But I think that's all curable. And the reason I think it's curable is because we're going to create wealth. Wealth is going to be created. It's going to have to be managed how we handle it, but wealth is going to be created because the biggest cost component of anything that we use in our daily lives is labor cost. The labor costs are very, very big. And these machines are going to be working, ultimately, they're going to be working for pennies an hour. And they can be produced in massive numbers, or they will be, we will be capable of producing them in massive numbers. It's going to affect every aspect of our lives. That's what I think. And the good news is that with wealth, you can cure problems. Obviously, it has to be managed fairly and effectively, but you can't do anything without the money to pay for it. So that's the good news that I'd like to leave you with for the moment. I've got to do a lot more thinking about this, but I really do feel that that is something very, very positive that's going to be happening, and it's not going to be, I think I'm going to see it start in a very big way within my lifetime, I hope. But at the moment, the way we're going at the moment on the path that we're on, sticking to this old Punch and Judy system, we're going to leave our kids with much worse off than we've been. And this is really the first time, isn't it, that that's happened. We I certainly expected to do better financially than my parents did, and that has definitely happened. And I think that's the same of all my peers, and probably the same of you listening to this. But our children now are struggling um, even to buy houses, and price housing. I mean, housing is a very, very obviously a very, very big problem. We have a big shortage of housing, which affects so many things, certainly affects the economy because people need to move to where the work is. See, all of that's going to change, I think. Um, so, as I say, I've got a lot more thinking and research to do on that particular topic. But that's the good news. I think we're going to be able to solve our climate problem with technology. I think we're going to solve our transportation problems, our energy problems, our food problems, our defenses, all these things uh, as a result of the huge advances that are going to be made in technological terms. So I leave you with that. I would love to hear your views if you think I'm crazy, which no doubt a lot of you will do. don't don't hold back. I'm very happy to listen to alternative views because that's really what I'm espousing, isn't it? That we should listen to other people's positions and we should discuss, debate, and come up with a consensus and move forward. So I hope you've got something out of this. You know, how to interact with us. A good way is via our Facebook page, which is also called the same name as the podcast. refinement, not retirement. So send us a message on Facebook, either direct message or do it publicly. Always love to read your comments. But anyway, for now, it's goodbye from me. Look forward to next time. Bye for now.